Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leha, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.
I will stand with our teachers so they continue to get pay raises in our schools to make sure they are fully funded.
Higher education should be affordable.
A college education should not be a financial burden. Higher education and vocational training should be affordable.
I am Lázaro Garza, and I approve this message.
Back at you and Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitron. I'm here with Grandmaster Richard Hackworth. And we're touching base, as we always have, with questions that are concerning to the field of martial arts and boxing gyms and things that kind of intermingle with both, because why we're kind of in similar now, especially in the same type of demographics that we're trying to teach and to handle. How are we doing? You doing good?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. And I'm glad to be here. I always appreciate when you invite me to be on the show. I look forward to it.
Well, not only because of our friendship, but also you're one of the most knowledgeable martial artists and school owners in the nation, in my thinking. And the reason I say that is because of the work that you've done in the past and the programs that you've developed and the quantity and everything that has happened behind your networking is what really that's what amazes me as in martial arts. See, many martial artists end up with a school because they think they can teach. I'm going to compare this to a lot of restaurants that open up. You know, a lot of people don't know I'm an executive chef, and a lot of people, because they make a good cheesecake at home, they think they can go ahead and do a steak and hamburgers and so on and so forth because they can do a good cheesecake. And all of a sudden, the restaurant business is closed within 2 years. And the same thing happens with martial arts. A lot of people think that I got my black belt, now I can go teach. And once you get into the teaching environment, a lot of things change. And we'll touch base with a question that you go ahead and say has been asked many times. So we're kind of, in several questions, we're going to put them together as that, which is?
Well, mostly the troubles that parents face in trying to solve the problems that their children are having and trying to find a school with an instructor who's qualified to actually mentor and teach those children to success. And I think one of the biggest drawbacks that I see is that parents are seeking out the superficial. You know, they're looking for a fancy studio and they get in there. They don't realize that they're finding instructors who have no experience. You know, you need a seasoned professional teacher if you want the best. And it's like I compare it to medical practice. If your child had a brain tumor, would you go searching for somebody fresh out of medical school, or do you want a surgeon who's got 30 or 40 years of experience performing that procedure on your child? You know, it's that important. We're talking about the potential life-saving benefits of martial arts, and your child is not going to get those things from somebody who lacks experience, who has never been through an instructor training course, who has never been through a mentoring program of their own, or has never served time as an associate instructor to earn their instructor's license. So I think that the biggest factor in all of this is parents not knowing what to look for when they're trying to find an instructor for their child.
That is actually a great question and a great, how can I say, synopsis of what's actually going on in the United States across a lot of martial arts, schools and boxing schools and what have you. I'm gonna go back in time a little bit. When I started teaching, I was 18 years old, and I started teaching a group of guys that were already fighters, wanted to learn how to fight, and wanted to learn how to kick to the legs because Savat was that. Granted, so my first students were already seasoned martial artists, were people that were in the ring, in and out of the ring, and that's what I was teaching. I was very lucky to see those. Those are people that I even idolized in the ring because I had them when I was younger competing, seeing them do this, and they wanted to learn what we did. When I went to France, I was taught how to teach. That's basically what I learned. When I came back and I started, I'm going to put this a time frame of 91 to about 98. All I saw was fathers bringing their kids, and the main thing was, why don't you teach my son? He got in a fight at school or at the playground or at a party or what have you. Teach him how to defend himself and teach him how to fight correctly. That's what the majority of the questions, and I'm like you, brother. I have notebooks of every year and what I did and what advertisement works, and I have stacks and stacks of, they tell me throw all this away, and I go, no, because if you're into a problem, the problem's already there. Let's go back and read it. But we can talk about that later on. And so then it started changing from like 96 to about 204, 203. Everything, instead of the father bringing in the son because he knew how to fight, it was the father bringing the son because he was being bullied. So the word switched from being fighting to being bullied. And then got to between 204 to about 210, everything was bullied. And now it was the father calling up and saying, you know what? My wife is going to go take the kid to class. And so the one that was bringing in the child was the wife, right? The father would call and the wife would bring in the phone, or ex-wife or what have you, bring in the child because they were being bullied. It got worse. It didn't get worse. I don't want to say that, but now from like say 2010 to pre-2020, everything was the mom calling and saying, my child being bullied, do you accept them, yes or no? So that changed the parameters. In the last couple of years, it's the mom or the aunt or the grandfather, grandmother bringing in the child and basically saying, you discipline him. We're having problems. So it has changed dramatically the spectrum of what it was before. I don't know if it's that way in your neck of the woods, but that's what's happening here. And now in the last couple of, I would say in the last year to the present, moms calling, which is okay for moms to call. I'm not saying nothing against that. They're calling and they're saying, my child's 2 years old, my child's 3 years old. Teach him how to defend himself, and he wants to be in martial arts and wants to do MMA. And you're like, really? It's a total different entity than what it was before. And I don't know if the parameters of the martial arts schools has changed, or society is trying to figure out, pass the buck to somebody to parent the kid. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's
I think that you really hit the nail on the head with it's purely we have an entire generation of young parents out there who do not parent their child. They try to fill that child's schedule with activities where other people are going to supervise the child, are going to discipline the child, are going to basically be the parent. And that's a very difficult thing to do, because if the parents aren't reinforcing those lessons of self-control and discipline at home, it's not going to work. And so what do? They blame the instructor. Oh, well, he's been here for 2 months and he's still disrespectful at home. Well, what you tolerate is what will continue. He's not disrespectful here in my class. If he's disrespectful at home, that's because you have allowed it. And once they realize that you're not going to allow it, it'll stop. And too many parents are afraid, well, I don't want my child to hate me. You're not their friend. That's not your job to be their friend. I can tell you, parents who try to be their child's friend are going to end up hearing those 5 famous words said to their child one day. And those words are, will the defendant please rise? Because undisciplined child becomes an undisciplined teen who ends up in trouble with the court system. Yeah. And it's a fact, statistically. It's been proven over and over. And what parents don't realize, too, is that when they're looking for a martial arts school, they don't really understand what we do. They think that we do kicking and punching, and that if the kid learns kicking and punching, they're going to be able to defend themselves. Well, first, the kid has to learn some confidence, because you can put a kid in front of a heavy bag for 5 hours a week, but if they don't have the confidence to put those hands up and throw hands when somebody's being aggressive toward them, it doesn't matter. And so the real advantage to a seasoned instructor, and I'm talking about somebody with 30 years of experience or more, is that they're going to teach their child how to win at life, not just win in a fight, because they teach their child how to win in 3 major categories. So the first one is they're going to get a physical win. They're going to develop confidence because they're becoming physically stronger from the training. And as they become physically stronger, they become mentally stronger. So you have to encourage them to push themselves physically during the class as a parent. And the other thing they're going to get is the mental win, because they're going to learn, they're going to be learning, they're going to be creating, they're going to be absorbing principles of the training. And as they do that, that helps their confidence and self-esteem evolve to a higher level, because now they understand, I am not helpless. I do have options when people are being aggressive towards me. I do have options when someone's trying to put their hands on me. And so as they learn to do that, like I said, it helps them win in another area of life. And then the third area, which a lot of parents really underestimate the value of, is, and we do it in our class, like with the meditating, but there's actually a spiritual aspect, and they're going to get that spiritual win, because as they develop themselves, through the studying and growing and meditating or whatever form of that type of training, it helps them evolve on that level. And so they're very well-rounded, very confident. They have high self-esteem, and people with high self-esteem do not allow themselves to be victimized by the idiots around them. And that's a pure and simple fact. And that's why I said I always recommend, when somebody reaches out to me, like on Facebook, like, hey, I'm in Austin, Texas, or whatever city, I'm trying to find a school, what do you recommend? I'm like, I recommend you find a seasoned instructor.
Yeah.
You're
absolutely correct. And, between you and I and several others, we can probably get somebody that's looking for a martial arts school and recommend a school throughout the U.S. That's how networking is that you have and what we have, right? And I always say this to people: it's not your net worth, it's your network that produces a person and where he's supposed to be at. Now, the problem that we have is I think, number one, most people do not know the difference between Taekwondo and sumo wrestling and capoeira and Greco-Roman wrestling and savate and whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so they have no conceptual clue of what a martial art is, where it is, what type, what is it for? Is it a self-defense? Is it more for longevity? Is it more for sport combat? So is it a combative sport, a sport tournament? They have no idea. So when a person walks into any martial arts school, they have no idea what it is. So they're already looking for a Ninja Turtle mentality. This is what my son's supposed to be doing. Power Rangers synopsis of what a martial art is. And they think that. And so they expect that from the schools that are out there. And then they find out that, you know what? The real, like you said, the seasoned martial artist, the discipline is the art that you're doing. And through that discipline, you yourself are gonna start getting discipline, and respect and everything else is gonna come through it because of that seasoned instructor. And I'm not knocking the young guys that are out there that have been taught very well, that are out there trying to start their schools, because we were there at one particular time and they've done well. And especially if you've done an apprenticeship, you can do so. But a lot of these schools nowadays have been convoluted to what we know in our industry as karate gardens or McDojos, and people think that's the way everything is, and that's not what actuality is. There is schools out there that teach 2-3-year-olds. There is. I've seen it. There's some here in town. And if that's their gig, I hope they make a lot of money and a lot of success, and the most power to them. But be careful, and this is to the people out there looking for it. Be careful where you put your kids into. Make sure. I've seen schools that all the red flags are there, so be careful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I know that, for me, one of the things that I appreciate, like with our organization, is that people do have to go through an internship. And there are a lot of things that go on during the internship, because there are things about teaching that you don't learn as a student. Because as a student, you're learning your requirements for the next belt. You're not learning how to pass those things on in a systematic, effective manner. And that's why a lot of martial arts schools fail, as particularly young instructors, because they never had an internship to follow, or attended instructors courses or anything like that. And just picture this. If you're a parent and you want your child to someday go to Harvard Law School, would you put them in a kindergarten program that doesn't even have high school graduates teaching it? No, you want a licensed professional teacher, a degreed professional. And that's what you get with seasoned martial arts instructors. And the funny thing is, a lot of instructors, and I'm not singling you out, but I know there are a lot of us in our younger days, we were troubled youth. And we were seeking martial arts as a way to get self-discipline ourselves and to escape that, street thug life, and to move on to better things. So we know how to help those kids, particularly the teenagers, how to avoid that negative peer influence from the bad kids that are around them.
Absolutely. And you said something there real quick, because that is true. You just said that. And I say this to everybody: you cannot teach something you have not lived. And when you grew up in a city where you had differences of neighborhoods or barrios and schools and stuff like that, and if you went to walked down the wrong block, all of a sudden you were fighting or what have you, you will never be able to pass that on to somebody else of what you did. I keep saying this: martial arts or savate or boxing or what else, they're the biggest negotiators there is. Because you go in the street, all of a sudden you have 2-3 guys in there, and you know that you're more likely going to get pummeled. You talk your way out of it. You start learning how to use it. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And people do not understand that. And you have to be able to pass that on to others. And not only from your experience, the experiences of those that taught you going through that. And it's a big circle that keeps on gaining more momentum and more, how can I say, more theories, and not theories, more learning experiences that can be passed on, because those that were passed on to you, you're going to pass on to others, and those that you learn are going to pass on to them. So you know what I'm saying? So it starts multiplying. But what I like to say is all sports are discipline. Every good sport, football, basketball, they're going to discipline you. When you mess up, they're going to tell you to run laps. They're going to tell you to do sit-ups. They're going to tell you what have you. And people sometimes don't like that. They don't like to be corrected. And if you go into a martial arts school, that's a caring martial arts school, you're going to be corrected constantly. Okay? And if I'm in front of my professor, the last time I saw him, he said, "Hey, you're doing this wrong. I saw you should try this." You have to accept that correction and learn from it and move forward. So when you have kids that have never been corrected at home, they're going to be troubled kids at school. They don't want to listen, and when they come over here, sometimes they don't want to listen either. And if they're allowed to do that, it's gonna. I hate to say that, it's gonna come back and haunt you in the future. And parents, understand this the same. You know, I'm gonna say, I ran into somebody that I knew in high school this Saturday, and I ran into him at the store. I was buying some stuff for construction. There was a little project that I'm doing, and he told me, "Paul, you know something? Do you know anybody? His son is now going to school elsewhere, and he says, "Do you know anybody in the college town that he's at that teaches martial arts?" And I go, "No, you know, not in that area, but I can find out who's around that area, see who will be more beneficial for him." Why? What happened? Well, he got beat up in one of these protests that's going on. Okay, and he got beat up pretty bad. They busted his nose and busted this. And this father, since that kid was yay high, 5, 6 years old, he would always tell me that he was going to bring in his child to do this right after baseball. Once baseball's over, he's going to go and train with you. Once football's over, he's going to go there and train with you. Once basketball's over, I'm going to take him right there. And every year, kids now and the kid graduated high school. Now he's in college. Just got beat up in one of these places where they have these protests. Got beat up pretty good. And I want him to do that. And you know what my answer was? Did you call their football and basketball coaches and tell them how come they didn't teach them how to defend themselves?
Yeah.
Because of course they taught him, if he was part of the protest, they didn't teach him how to stand up correctly either.
Well, I know for me, I always felt that like my daughter's learning self-defense was a given. It was not an option. It was mandatory because as a parent, I am responsible for the
Absolutely.
health, safety, and happiness of my child. And in that order, their health, safety, and happiness. Happiness is third on the list. So it doesn't mean they have to like going to class, but they're going to go. What are you going to tell your 10-year-old when they don't want to go to third grade anymore? Are you going to let them quit? No, that's why they have laws to make parents send their kids to school, because most parents don't have the self-discipline. Or I'll put it this way, they don't love their child enough to push them to do what they know is good for them, instead of just letting them do whatever they want.
You're correct. And in today's is in the last, I would say in the last decade or so, maybe a little bit more, it is more habitual for a teacher and their counselors and everything to diagnose your child that he's on some kind of spectrum. And by the time you know it, your kid's already popping pills, being medicated just because he doesn't want to learn in school. So you already got a problem. And a problem that you could have taken care of by punishing him a little bit harder when he was a little kid. And I'm not talking about hitting him or what have you, just rearing him upright. And that happens. And you're correct. You're correct. And that's the problem that we're seeing now. And let me put it to you this way. If you have a kid that has problems has been diagnosed by these so-called experts at these schools now, that's what they get paid to do. So diagnose them, stick them, and give them and medicate the kid, and you don't have to teach him, and he doesn't have to pass the exams. You just have to okay, your kid does this, your kid does that. They're doctors now, the teachers and principals and counselors. They prescribe whatever they want. They don't prescribe it, but they tell them what they need. It's pretty bad. But what I'm getting at is when that happens, we have a problem in the future. And if you're taking them to a martial art place where he's learning how to punch and kick, when is that kid going to snap? Then all of a sudden, martial arts is going to be blamed because of that problem. Understand what I'm saying? Where I'm getting at?
Right. Yeah, because if you're teaching someone how to fight, but not teaching them self-discipline, basically you're creating bullies.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
I can see it like when I get invited to visit a lot of martial arts schools. And when I get there, if I see kids running around, chasing each other, hollering and playing and whatnot, I know that that's an undisciplined environment. And every dollar that instructor is taking from parents is stolen money, because I'm sure that that's not why they signed their kid up.
Oh, I believe me, I've seen it. I remember when one was growing up, you didn't even mention that you were doing this.
Yeah.
You didn't even mention it, that you were so-and-so's. And all of a sudden, everybody in school started saying, we're in the same karate team or the same tournament team, because we did a lot of tournaments, especially with a biology teacher that took us over there. And that's what it was for, and he has a great martial arts school here in Laredo that deals with tournament fighting, which is excellent. And that's his gig. That's what he does. They're great. But, so you don't run around with those uniforms anywhere. We were told that. And now you go to a grocery store, the kid's 8 years old with a black belt, 9 years old with a black belt, telling a mom to go stick it. You're like, really? You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's something that I think the basics we have to come back with. And I think the basics, you said it earlier in our conversation, is parents have to start parenting.
Right. What's interesting is I watch a lot of podcasts, and one of the podcasts that I watched, they were talking about things that billionaires have in common. And the majority of billionaires in the world have some martial arts background, some military or police background, and went on to become the highest level CEOs and whatever in their industry. Sure. And it's because of the self-discipline that they develop during their training. And I tell you that every single one of them in that interview attributed a good portion of their success in life to having learned martial arts in a highly disciplined environment. Because otherwise, it doesn't take much effort to become mediocre.
Excellent. There's a lot of mediocre out there, and mediocre to a lot of people is excellence. And that's, the thing about Savant, the thing that I've been doing it for the longest time. I started this when I was 6. This September, I'll be 56. I'll be doing this 50 years. It's this school where you see here, it's been here since 88, the same place. It won't be here much longer, but because we're looking for a new place for many reasons. And the thing that I see is there's new fads. Fads go everything. There's new training equipment. There's new innovations in boxing gloves. There's new innovations in shoes. There's new innovations in the uniforms that you use, the clothing. Those are innovations. Then there's fads. Everybody sometimes wants to act like a certain rap band or rock band or what have you, because that's a fad. I get that. Everybody wanted to look like David Lee Roth jumping around in the tournaments in the 80s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see that trend. Then all of a sudden now, with MMA, everybody wants to have the flat top and crew cut. Well, before that was frowned upon. You know what I'm saying? So you start seeing that. Fads are fads. Fads come and go, but true discipline stays. True pedagogy stays, and that continues going because it has basics. It has something to follow. 1+1 = 2. It doesn't equal 5. Doesn't equal 10. And when you start changing that way of thinking, it changes you. Another thing that I say is to many parents that if you're going to come in here, what do you actually want from your child to learn? Because if you think that he's just if you want this as a hobby, okay, there's schools for that. Do you want him to do tournaments, karate tournaments, because his cousin's in the karate tournaments? There's schools for that. Or do you want him to learn something that's going to be beneficial for life? Then there's places for that. Don't push your kid into doing tournaments because he might not like it, and all of a sudden he's going to bounce back and say, no, I don't want that. And you're going to be, most parents find themselves in a contract that's pretty steep. Get out of this falsity that a black belt is the ultimate warrior in the street, because that doesn't matter. So if you're in a school that all of a sudden your kid becomes a black belt within a year, that's what you have. That doesn't matter. So you should not go in there to try to see what rank you're looking for. What rank my child is going to get. Go in there to train him for the future. You want him to be in a place that's going to have a type of guidance throughout elementary, junior high, and high school. And hopefully onward, they can take it forward. And I always tell parents this, look at it as a vocation. You're teaching your child a trade, because a lot of instructors like yourself and others, they put too much time in there. They're putting a piece of that person. You're putting a piece of you into that person to learn. You're learning a trade. They're actually doing an apprenticeship. And they have to start from the beginning on the way up. Most of the people that do get to the other levels end up becoming good instructors in their own right and going off and teaching. And in this modern age, you can always use it as a vocation that you have to your profession, or a secondary job, or what have you. Understand? And people need to understand that a martial arts school should also be taken note as a vocation that you're teaching them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely.
Because a lot of people say, "Oh, he got a black belt. Oh, it's already gonna." No, he doesn't. Okay, and you shouldn't push them. And if you're going to a school, make sure you can see the class. Make sure you can sit in a place where you can see the class. Make sure that you understand who's there. All that.
Absolutely.
No.
I know that we're almost at the end of our time. Is there any other points you'd like to make for the?
No. I just wanted to see how you felt about that question that was asked, and we had conveyed about it in the last week and so. But we needed a touch point here for people to kind of look and see what it's about, what a martial arts school is about. And I'm encompassing all the martial arts, not just one, not one in particular, not one's above the other, because everybody's trying to teach the traditions that they have. Be careful out there. Be careful. There's a lot of shysters.
I'd like to thank everybody that watched today's show. Please leave us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from, so we know how far the show goes. If you get a chance, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can see us again next time. And we really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching.
Absolutely. Be safe. You guys stay safe, and God bless you all. Until next time, much peace. Be safe.